Hi, it's Katrina. My friend David is going to be helping me out with the voiceover today, so I hope you enjoy.
Number 9. The Blue-Eyed Mummies. Have you ever heard of the legendary Chachapoya, the Cloud Warriors of ancient Peru? In South America, long before the Inca Empire became the dominant force in the Andes Mountains, the Chachapoya reigned supreme. They were known as the Cloud People or Cloud Warriors, and they were an ancient race of mysterious humans who constructed a highly advanced civilization. They prospered for about 600 years before the rise of the Inca in the isolated northern highlands. This is a section of Peru where mountains stretch to the skies and the valleys lead down into the dark shade of the Amazon jungle. There was an estimated 500,000 people here, ruled over by shamans and kings. They were doing really well up until the Inca invasion in the 1470s, but from then on, the Chachapoya were slowly erased from this world. Archaeologists know about them thanks to heaps of archaeological discoveries. Their ruins have been found, yet they have no written language to explain their culture. Archaeologists can poke through their tombs all they want, but there's no real information about where they came from or what they believed in. And to complicate matters further, it's believed that the Chachapoya were unlike any other group in the Western Hemisphere. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, there were still a few groups of Chachapoya that had yet to be defeated by the Inca. The Spanish were shocked because the Cloud People looked like Europeans. Reports from the Spanish colonists detail how the Chachapoya had bright blue eyes, blonde hair, and pale skin. But how in the world did a group of white people dominate South America for 600 years? It's a mystery that's never been solved, and it gets even crazier when you realize there are myths of blue-eyed people in other parts of the world where there shouldn't have been people with blue eyes. Mysterious golden masks depicting blue-eyed humans have reportedly been found in ancient Sumer, India, and even Egypt. The Nazis believed this was proof that the world was dominated by a superior Aryan race thousands of years ago. And while that's definitely not true, there do appear to have been strange people with blue eyes living in places where everyone else had dark skin and dark eyes. For example, the Chachapoya. But who exactly were these mysterious blue-eyed humans who infiltrated all these ancient societies? Unfortunately, nobody knows. And now for number 8. But first, it's shout-out time. I need to give a big thank you to Primal Zodiac Hunter for the super thanks and for supporting this channel. I'm so lucky to have viewers like you. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like these. Number 8. The Ming Buddha. In 2018, Australian filmmakers were shooting a documentary about the French exploration of Australia. Their filming took them to a remote patch on the western portion of the continent where they hunted for lost artifacts left over by the Borden expedition of the early 19th century. The filmmakers didn't find any traces of French explorers from 200 years ago, but what they did find was even more shocking. They came across a small Buddha figure that was made in China centuries ago, and in the years since the discovery, scientists have tried desperately to figure out how a Buddha statue wound up in a remote area of Western Australia. There are no solid answers here, though there's plenty of speculation. Filmmakers Leon Deschamps and Shane Thompson believe the Buddha statue could rewrite history. It potentially points to an unknown expedition that was carried out during China's Ming dynasty. That's because the artifact was confirmed as being a Ming-era statue, and it was built roughly 600 years ago in the 15th century. The dating is important because around the same time this statue was built, the Ming dynasty was in a stage of exploration. At least 7 expeditions left China in search of new lands. The expeditions traveled through Southeast Asia to the coast of Africa. But there isn't any documents or evidence proving that they reached Australia except for this single statue. What this could mean is that China may have found Australia long before Europeans ever stepped foot on the continent. Number 7. Socrates in space. The ancient Greeks were so far ahead in the ways of science that if their culture had been allowed to flourish uninterrupted, we would all be living in the year 2400 by now. A man named Archytas is credited as being the inventor of the flying machine. He designed and built a self-propelled device that could allegedly fly to a height of 600 feet. Keep in mind that this was 2,400 years ago, long before the Wright brothers invented their own flying machine in 1903. Among the great inventors and brilliant scientific minds of ancient Greece was Socrates, one of the best philosophers who ever lived. Some say Socrates wasn't just a philosopher, but that he may have also been a space traveler. Socrates composed a piece of work about 2,400 years ago that describes him looking at Earth from outer space. He detailed the planet as looking like a ball of color, describing the white of the clouds and the great patches of water. It was an incredible thing to detail, considering that a lot of people believed the Earth was flat. Yet here was Socrates describing the view of the planet as if he'd seen it from the International Space Station. There isn't any archaeological proof that Socrates was in space, but still, his description of the Earth as a colorful ball is uncanny. Is it possible that the Greeks were more technologically advanced than anyone ever imagined? Since there's no proof that the Greeks could travel to space, many suspect that Socrates may have been granted a seat on an alien ship to view the world from above. Number 6. The oldest burial. In 1955, an ancient burial site was found in a quarry in Russia. It's called the Sungia site, and it's located less than 130 miles from Moscow. Excavations over 50 years ago revealed the remains of humans who were buried about 34,000 years before today. The site has been an endless mystery for archaeologists who can't seem to understand what happened here during prehistoric times. Natasha Reynolds from the University of Bordeaux has called Sungia the earliest example of elaborate Homo sapiens burials. And if the experts are to be believed, this may have been the first place ever that modern humans performed complex funerary rituals. But why? What drove the Stone Age humans to start ritualistically burying their dead? There's one grave in particular that's fascinated researchers. It's the grave of a man who died from a cut to his neck at the age of about 35. In his grave, roughly 3,000 ivory beads made from mammoth tusks were discovered. He was also buried with ivory spears and discs, as well as decorated antlers. It was an extremely elaborate burial that was completed at a time when humans still lived in caves. The first city wouldn't be established for nearly 30,000 more years. And yet, this burial was just as sophisticated as burials done during the days of the Roman Empire. Number 5. The alien skull of Crimea. Russian archaeologists recently found an extremely strange skull in a tomb in Crimea. The skull was described as belonging to an alien boy because of its bizarre shape. The skull was weirdly elongated, shaped like an egg instead of the normal shape of a human head. Researchers believe the skull was artificially lengthened as part of a bizarre grooming process 2,000 years ago. The child was likely being indoctrinated into the world of Sarmatian warriors. When the Roman Empire was busy conquering the lands around Italy, the Sarmatian culture was doing their own thing in Ukraine, and near the end of their reign, they became obsessed with artificially deforming the skulls of young warriors. This was typically done by compressing the infant's head with soft cloth, but if they didn't use cloth, they would use wooden planks to squish the skull. They did the same thing in North and South America too, which is really strange considering the fact that there was no contact between the Americas and Europe. Mainstream scientists say the modification was done so the warriors would look more fearsome. However, that's not verified. It's only a theory that it was done to make warriors more aggressive. The fact that deformed skulls have been found all over the globe suggests that there was something more complicated going on. Another theory is that the Sarmatians had contact with aliens before their culture went extinct. They may have been fascinated by the aliens' elongated skulls and attempted to copy the look using artificial modifications. Number 4. The Portal to the Underworld. At the ancient Mayan city of Chichen Itza in Mexico, archaeologists recently found a creepy portal to hell. Not the Christian hell, but the Mayan underworld. The portal was found when divers explored an underwater sinkhole near the city called the San Andres Cenote. At the bottom of the flooded sinkhole, they discovered an astounding 38 skeletons. Researchers identified bones from a human, an armadillo, a dog, an eagle, and a turkey. They also uncovered the remains of a canoe, which may have been used as part of a ritual to help the dead move into the afterlife. It's generally agreed upon by experts on the ancient Maya that they believed caves and cenotes acted as portals to the underworld. Armadillos also held a special place in Maya mythology. The Maya believed that armadillos were avatars of the gods. And judging by the skeletons at the bottom of the cenote, people here were likely tossed into the water along with animal sacrifices. It was likely to make their journey into the underworld a safer one, but of course that's all just speculation. What do you think people did to be thrown into these cenotes in Mexico? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Number 3. The Giants of Catalina. Catalina Island in California is home to a mystery that's been baffling scientists for decades. It all started in the early 20th century with a man named Ralph Glidden. Ralph uncovered a series of skeletons on the island that were ridiculously big. But keep in mind that his discoveries were, and still are, hugely controversial. The skeletons are largely ignored by mainstream scientists these days. But according to Ralph and the old records, he unearthed skeletons of humans who stood 9 feet tall. Ralph believed the skeletons belonged to people who had distinctively blonde hair. It's unclear how he knew this though, considering they were bones and had no hair left. That's just what Ralph thought. At the time, the discovery was a big deal. Everyone in the archaeological community was talking about it. There were rumors that the skeletons would change the known history of North America. These were giant skeletons that supposedly had European traits, and they were buried on an island where no Europeans should have been buried. And what's even weirder was that the giants were buried without any artifacts. Ancient burials almost always included grave goods, but not in the case of the giants. Now, here's where things get especially bizarre. According to the oral legends of the northern Paiute tribe, there was a race of giants with blue eyes and red hair who lived on Catalina Island. They were called the Saiduca, and they were known by tribes from California to Nevada. Many believe the skeletons were the remains of the Saiduca, the last remaining giants to live in North America. Nobody knows what happened to the skeletons after they were excavated. They've been lost, though Ralph's photos survive as proof of the discovery. One rumor is that Ralph sold his collection of skeletons in 1962, but another rumor is that they were collected by the Smithsonian Institution, which destroyed them. Unfortunately, Ralph passed away in 1967, taking his secrets with him. Number 2. Mount Nemrut's secrets. Mount Nemrut rises 7,000 feet into the clouds in southeastern Turkey, and at the peak of the mountain is a collection of shattered statues from about 2,100 years ago. While the statues are in various states of disrepair right now, they once stood as proud guardians of a royal tomb. The tomb itself is enormous and baffling to researchers. It's an extremely strange place to construct a great tomb, never mind one so grand. The main tomb structure at the summit is about 470 feet in diameter, with the funerary mound extending 165 feet. The construction of this tomb would have taken an immense amount of work. It's like if the Egyptians had built the pyramid at the top of a mountain. The idea of such a feat of engineering being done in the 1st century BC borders on absurd. From what archaeologists can tell, the tomb was built by King Antiochus I of Carmogony. He constructed it as a legendary monument to himself and ordered it to be guarded by statues of eagles, lions, and a whole host of gods. Some of the statues were made in the likeness of deities like Hercules, Zeus, Mithras, and Hermes. Since they were built, though, the statues have been ripped down and scattered across the mountain. The construction of the tomb is likely easy enough to explain. With enough workers, the tomb could have been completed in a few years. The biggest mystery is what King Antiochus was thinking by commissioning such a creation. One theory is that Antiochus wanted to create a cult following for himself after his death. It's possible that he may have wanted to be worshipped as a god. Number 1. The Williams Enigmalith. In 1998, electrical engineer John J. Williams came across what he thought looked like an electrical connector poking out of some dirt. He was on an excursion in a rural location somewhere in North America, but the exact place is unknown. The only thing John says about the excursion is that it took place extremely far from human life. It was away from houses, from factories, and from anywhere civilized. John dug the strange electrical connector from the dirt, discovering something that's still unexplained. The electrical connector, a standard 3-prong plug, was embedded in a rock. The artifact appears to show an electrical component stuck in a stone that's estimated to be 100,000 years old. A geological analysis proved its age, though the authenticity of the component is debated. Some say it's just a coincidence, a fluke that there are 3 metallic prongs sticking out of the stone. But according to John, he consulted with engineers and geologists to confirm that the stone formed around the component. In other words, the plug is at least 100,000 years old. So it's essentially fossilized inside the rock. The artifact is known as the Williams Enigmalith. John has supposedly made the rock available to any scientist interested in conducting further analysis. However, scientists have ignored the rock. They've called it a hoax since everything the history books say indicates a plug so old should be impossible. There's just no way this kind of technology could have existed 100,000 years ago. But what if it did? That's the real intrigue surrounding the artifact. What if the plug is from an ancient civilization that existed in prehistory? A society of technologically advanced creatures, not necessarily human, that left nearly nothing of themselves behind, except a few stray pieces of metal and this unexplainable plug. What are your thoughts on the Williams Enigmalith? Is it a fake, or is it proof that history is not the way it seems? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.